Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Andrew. I am your host for this afternoon. Please, thank you for joining us. Please be welcome. I hope you're hearing me okay. I hope I haven't screwed up the sound this time. I worked extra hard to make sure. I've said it out loud. Now it's going to be wrong. But yeah, no, I worked on the sound. It should be good. I am joined today by the wonderful, oh my gosh, thank you, Bomb Time. Amazing, 20 subs right off the bat. Amazing. I am joined by the Foundry VTT dev team. We're all here, myself, Eber, Kim, and Ludovic. You can each say hello to our wonderful community.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
We have been hard at work. I haven't let the three of them outside of the coding mines in several months, but I've actually unlocked the gate for a short excursion to come before you today so that we can showcase some of the amazing work that we've been doing to improve Foundry VTT. And so I'm hopefully you're all excited to learn a little bit about that. We just released last week prototype 2 for version 11 or 12. What are we on? What year is it? Prototype 2 for version 12, and it's in a really exciting place. There's a lot of work still to do for V12, but it's coming along really, really nicely, and I'm excited to spotlight some of the big changes. I am on the tail end of a cold, so I apologize for sounding a little bit congested, but nothing to be done about that. I guess we can go ahead and get to it. So we're going to spend today's stream going through some of the big new features in V12 and taking your questions. We'll kind of divide time between those two. If you have questions along the way, please do feel free to just put them out in chat. If you can preface your question with like an all caps question, that helps me to see it easily. We might not get to all of those, especially while we're in the middle of presenting other things, but we'll try and make more time for questions later on, and we'll get to as many as we can along the way. But the main thing that we're going to do is start by hitting the highlights of what came out in prototype 2. So I guess the best place to start with that is a little reminder about like where we are in the development process for V12. So we're done now with the prototype phase, which means we've done the work to kind of build the experimental foundation for all of the big features that we intend for V12 to have. Now, those features need a lot more refinement and TLC and polishing and whatnot, but the basic foundation for those features are in place, and we're going to be continuing to refine and iterate on them now in what we call the API development phase, which is really focused on working with our module and system developers to make sure that these new features are working for them and that we're breaking as little of their existing functionality as is absolutely necessary. And so, we're really focused on compatibility to the extent that's possible, stability, refinement of the way that these new systems work. And so this is the beginning of a phase where we're very eager and dependent on our wonderful community for feedback. And so for those of you in the audience who are developers of various Foundry packages, firstly, thank you. And secondly, I do hope you get a chance to check out Prototype 12 and Prototype 2. Oh man, I don't even know what we're doing. Prototype 2 and hopefully what we'll show on the stream today will maybe entice you to do that. Anything that the three of you would like to add before we just start jumping into features that we want to show? No? Okay.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Well, first up then is Eber, who has been working very hard on scene regions and region events. So we had a Patreon poll for what was the voted upon feature, and event triggers was the winner of that poll. And we did a lot of thinking about how we would want to implement event triggers, and ultimately event triggers ended up getting split into two features, both of which provide part of the puzzle. One feature is what we call scene regions, which has to do with defining an area of the scene that has particular mechanical significance. And the second half of event triggers has to do with what we call region behaviors, which is various things that apply to that region. They could be that they always apply. It could be that they sometimes apply when certain events happen, and that's what provides this sort of triggered nature of event triggers, is when certain things happen as related to a region of the scene, certain behaviors can be automated. And it's a really powerful system that's coming together in a really exciting way. I hope you're all going to be excited by what you'll see, although it is still a prototype. Like we're building the foundation, and a lot of the kind of glorious implementation of different behaviors is still yet to come. But without further ado, we can give some examples. And so, Eber, would it be good to start just in like a blank scene, so there's like nothing else going on with the
maybe.
example that you shared?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
maybe.
Let me create just a blank like test regions. I'll create a blank scene and activate it, and maybe I'll just put on global illumination so we don't have to deal with restricted visibility. So we've got some tokens here. Now, at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but at the moment, the creation of scene regions is via the API only. Now, that's something that we're working on. Eventually, you'll be able to define scene regions using a UX that's, kind of similar to drawing tools, although it will probably be a little bit different. But yeah, eventually there will be sort of a way to draw regions. But for the time being, we've just been focused on the API only for scene regions. So I'm going to pull up my console here, and I'm going to run a macro to create a region. And so I just did this programmatically, and so there was no user interaction here. Eventually there will be, but I just did it via a command for now. And so on the canvas controls palette, there's a new layer for regions that will show some information about regions that exist in the scene. And we have one that we just created, and we also now have a little bit of a preliminary UI for that region as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe regions, regions are composed of an arbitrary number of shapes. Some of these shapes can be holes, so you can create basically any shape you want. Currently, we only have rectangle and circle shapes, but we will add, of course, polygons and ellipses and stuff like that. Yeah, what do you do? And of course, every shape defines an elevation range, the top and bottom elevation. So, like every shape is basically a generalized cylinder.
Probably our label here should say 0 to 20. I think.
Yeah, that might be like
the
a bug.
UI. The UI UX is very much a work in progress, but mechanically important to note that each region has a verticality, and so I think you have a good way of describing this in that like the region shape basically defines like the base of a conceptually sort of 3D cylindrical object, and the size of that base is projected across the elevation range. So if there's like a flying token or tokens that's like going up or down in elevation as you're looking at this 2D map, they would remain within this region along that third dimension. Is that a good way to describe it, or would you use some different terms?
That's correct. And yeah, as you can see, there's also a hole property. So a whole shape will be subtracted from other shapes below it, or like in the order below it. Yeah, so this is just a simple rectangle. But the interesting stuff happens in the behaviors tab. There you can see we have 3 behaviors on this
Awesome. So
region.
we've got one that's a highlight grid behavior. We've got
Yep.
one that's a blur token behavior, and I think that's currently disabled, right? Like
Yeah,
this dividing line is like these are the enabled behaviors and these are the disabled ones.
that's right. And
So
the
can
little check marks,
I can try to disable the highlight grid behavior.
and it should
Will it work?
hopefully.
Oh, there's no more highlight. Yeah, wonderful. So highlight grid is
Yes.
highlight grid. Basically, this is a custom behavior that you made as a demo, right?
Yeah, I just made it today. It's like a little example module that defines this behavior. And yeah, this is the kind, like, you probably will have two kinds of behaviors for your regions, behaviors that deal with events, with region events, and those that don't. Like the grid highlight, for example, is it's just interested in highlighting the grid within the region and doesn't deal with events at all. But yeah, the other two that we have there are simple script behaviors. Currently in core we have script and macro behaviors, but we plan on others as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's important to emphasize that this custom highlighting behavior was added by a module, and like the technical implementation is that it's a module defined subtype of region behavior. So the region behavior is a document, and so systems and modules can define custom types of that document to have whatever properties or behaviors that they want. So it's a very powerful framework that game systems and modules can use to integrate and define any sort of custom automation behavior related to the region that they want. I saw a question just a minute ago from let's see, from Zaward about like, will we need to wait to V13 for like UI for this? No. We're doing the UI UX in V12. It's not done yet in V12, but we are going to have a hopefully pretty intuitive UI UX for users to define these regions and shapes and behaviors. Anyways, Eber, yeah, you were saying we have other behavior types in core. One of them is that we can trigger a macro. So like if you have a macro that you want to reuse the functionality of that macro across many different scene regions, you can hook that macro up to the region so that it fires when certain events occur. We also have a custom script behavior, and that's what these others are. So it's just like we can put any sort of custom piece of JavaScript, and the UI here is very preliminary. Like we'll work to make it a little bit easier to edit, but yeah, you can put like any arbitrary. The GM can put any arbitrary JavaScript that they want. It's GM only configurable by the game master, but this behavior is subscribed to certain events that can occur. Eber, do you want to maybe give a rundown of like which events we currently support?
Yeah. Currently we support token entering events, exiting. We have a move event for whenever a token moves within the region or out of it. And we have combat events for tokens that start their turn or end their turn within the region. So in this example here, the blur token, maybe we'll drop a token into the scene.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, we need to enable it.
Let me verify that I need to make sure that behavior is enabled. I think I haven't enabled it yet. Yeah. So at first, before I do that, we'll just move the token in and out of the scene, and basically like under the hood, events in theory are happening here. It's just there's nothing subscribed to those events, so there's no actual behavior that occurs. But when we are moving in and out of the region, those triggered events are firing. And so if we actually enable a behavior that does something as a result of that, so blur token should do something when we enter or exit. That's the way it's configured. Should we see what it does? Does it blur me? Whoa, I'm big and blurry.
Yeah, it does two things. The one thing it does is, of course, the blur. It adds a simple pixie blur filter to the token. And the other component is that it increases the scale. And yeah, some of the behavior code needs to be executed on all clients. Like this would be the filter. Like every client needs to add the filter to the token, and the other part, the scale increase. That's a document update, and this is something that, of course, should only be executed by one
client.
user. Yeah. And so behaviors need to, for these kind of things that only one client should execute. The behavior needs to be designed in such a way that, like, this kind of user, there's a designated user for this kind of stuff. So it could be the active GM, or like in this case, it is the user that moves the token.
Yeah, because we already know that user has permission to modify their own token. So in cases where like the region does something to yourself, the person that initiated the move can be responsible for enacting the behavior. Otherwise, there's a representative GM that can perform it. I see a lot of great questions, and I think people are mostly getting the gist of like the direction that this is going in. Claude Kenny, LOL, asks triggers for start end combat turn. Is there a similar trigger for starting or ending a combat round? I don't know about round, but certainly there will be a behavior for like initiating a combat encounter. So definitely we have plans to like have a behavior where, you know, when you enter this area, it could automatically start a combat encounter with, you know, certain enemies that are either like already in the scene, or it could create a combat encounter by spawning new enemies who are not yet present on the scene. Oh, I need to turn off. I'm spoiling something from later in the stream today. I need to.
Oh no.
I need to disable my dice fulfillment. That's for later. That's a later subject. Yeah, so certainly there will be behavior integration for like triggering a combat, for example, definitely, and yeah, things like that for sure. Another question,
and anyone can like any module can define events. Like events are just basically like have an event name and can send some event data, and everyone can do that. Define their own events and assign meaning to them.
Yeah, a good question is is this working towards getting Monk's active tile triggers into core? Sort of. It's a great module, and there's a lot of concepts in common between what that Monk's active tile triggers module is doing and what our vision for scene regions and region behaviors is doing. Conceptually, there's overlap, but this is not like a port of that module. We're approaching the problem in a different way, a way that it's not that we think that module isn't great. It is a great module, but it's fundamentally using tiles, which is a solution that's great for a module, but we can do different things. We can define new document types like regions and region behaviors, and we can define new server-side behaviors, and we can define new APIs for emitting events. And so we have fundamentally different tools to work with than the way that modules could approach the problem. That's not to say that we think it's a better solution than a module that's doing great work, but it's just a different approach, and it's the approach that we feel is the right one for the core software. Question from Claudio 4SV, will behaviors be available in templates? We're working to figure that out. There's going to need to be some relationship between scene regions and measured templates. Exactly what that relationship ends up being is something that we're still, I don't know, Eber, it's probably safe to say we're still trying to figure out whether the region is going to be linked to a template or whether the templates will become regions, like whether one concept will subsume the other.
Yeah.
We're still
You could
doing some
certainly
thinking there.
implement templates with scene regions now, or something like templates.
And certainly we're going to want templates, conceptually in terms of gameplay. A lot of the things that would happen as behaviors need to happen as it relates to templates. So when you have like the radial blast of fire damage, there's certain things, there's certain behaviors, whether that becomes difficult terrain or it like inflicts burn damage when you start your turn in the area. Like these are the sorts of problems that Scene Regions is designed to solve. And so there's going to need to be an integration there, but we're still doing some problem solving. We're still a little bit too early to answer exactly what that solution looks like. Question from CryptWright about support for teleportation. I think that's another behavior that will definitely be on our list of behaviors to support. We'll want to have some behavior such that, either when you enter a region or when you're in a region and you interact with something, we can use two regions to define like you move from A to B or from B to A. Those are definitely like within the realm of possibility of what region behaviors will support. And that's something that I expect will offer a core behavior for like a token teleportation behavior. I don't want to commit us to that, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that that will be a core behavior type. Mooman asks, like, can we integrate active effects to region behaviors and have them apply to tokens within the region? Absolutely. That you can either do that with a custom behavior type that the actual definition of that behavior type implements that logic, just as this custom behavior type does with Blur, or you can do it with a script behavior where you can subscribe that script behavior to certain events, and like when a token enters the region, you can put an active effect on it, and when the token leaves the region, you can remove an active effect from that token. That's definitely within scope and possible with this framework. Sorry, these are really good questions in chat, so I'm just trying to like capture a few of these. End of round would be great for earthquake damage happens at end of round. Yeah, whether we want to have a separate event for like start round and end round, I think it would be pretty easy to add those events. But you also can get at that from the start turn and end turn events, because if you're starting the first turn in the round or you're ending the last turn in the round. But it might be, I don't know, I think that's a reasonable suggestion. It would be pretty low effort for us to also add round start and end events. Wouldn't you agree, Eber?
Yeah. Probably won't hurt if we add it and no one uses it, but yeah.
It's pretty low effort for us to support those events. So
we have them in the combat. I think the combat itself emits end round, start round.
Let me pause on.
To have some parity.
Let me pause on the questions for a moment, and I'll disable the blur behavior, and we can show the other behavior that you.
That's maybe a more
here.
realistic behavior.
This is a good example of like when the token starts their turn in the fire damage. I'm gonna maybe just paste this code into like a macro for a moment. The line breaks is not so readable. Anyways, it's okay. You all get the idea. Like Eber has written a little bit of macro code here.
That's how I write the code.
Eber's code never passes.
No line breaks.
No line breaks.
I don't need them.
Yeah, so this fire damage behavior, basically like when the token starts its turn in the round, it presumably, I'm led to believe, will take some fire damage. So let's see. I've got these three tokens in combat. If we move to the next turn, ooh, ow, 2 points of fire damage. So it rolled a d6 and it applied that fire damage automatically to the token when it started its turn. I feel like our region needs to be a different color at this point. Well, and green, green flame. That's a thing. Yeah, and then so, next turn, oh, now we take 1 point of fire damage. Next turn, 1 point of fire damage. Ooh, 3 points of fire damage. We're gonna be, this is gonna be fatal before long. Yeah, so that's a really cool, very easily implemented example of like, this region is burning, and when you start your turn in it, you take damage. Really easily implemented in this framework.
Yeah, for anyone interested in the scripts, they are in the GitHub issue as examples. So yeah.
Couple of more questions I could maybe pick out. A question from Kid Messiah: how reliably will this overcome the issues modules have with sometimes not removed effect when a target leaves an area? Our intention and our hope is that this will be very reliable. There are some cases in which, due to the multiplayer nature of Foundry, it's possible that certain events won't be able to be handled. For example, like if the custom event behavior requires a game master to do something and there's no GM user online, a player could be like moving around the map because the GM left the server unpaused, and all these events could be firing, but there's no GM online to do anything with them. So there are like situations in which it's not 100% foolproof. It does rely on, on things like that working out. But I do think that it's a very robust solution that we've designed, and it should not be overly susceptible to like that type of failure. Does the behavior have any function outside of a combat encounter? Not this behavior, because this behavior is specific to turn start, and that's specifically a combat turn start. But there are behaviors that certainly, like the blur token behavior, there are behaviors that can have effects outside of combat. One of the things I discussed with Eber earlier today actually is, of course, we need to, when the region changes, we need to like fire events because of that change. So like you'll notice that when I turn off, or like when I turn on blur token, the tokens that are already in the region, in theory they should become blurred, but we'll sort some things like that out. Like currently it doesn't happen until you like move out and then move back in, but those are solvable problems. Yeah, it definitely can support behaviors that don't have anything to do with combat encounters. Will this make two very related questions? Could it handle having movement, and will this make difficult terrain easy to implement? That's definitely a goal. So because the client that initiates token movement can interface with regions and region behaviors, that means that region behaviors can affect a movement before it happens. So suppose, and this is a little theoretical, we don't have an example of this in practice yet to show, but suppose I'm trying to move 30 feet into this region, and we say these 4 squares of it are difficult terrain, and so really I should only be able to move lesser. Like we could say the code for that behavior could understand that, oh, you're moving 10 feet up to and into the difficult terrain, and then you're moving an additional 15 feet in, and then an additional 15 feet after that, and the final result of that move could be that like you hit difficult terrain and then you slow down and you don't go quite as far. And of course there needs to be some messaging around that. There needs to be like a pop-up or a scrolling text or something that explains why you've slowed down. But yes, definitely, because the client that is initiating a token move can have access to understand what the behaviors of a region are, the client that's initiating a move can enforce difficult terrain behaviors or behaviors like break movement. So suppose like, these regions are not always going to be visible to the players. So, oftentimes the region itself will be invisible. As a player, you're not going to know that there's a region there. I can move into the region, and you can imagine that like as soon as I step into the region, the game pauses and my movement stops or something like that. These are the sorts of things like we can interrupt token movement. We could trigger a game pause. There's a variety of things we could do to like use these regions to sort of intercede in gameplay. Looking for a couple other questions. Could the region also trigger skill or attribute rolls? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like overpromise and say like you can do anything, because there probably are some limitations that like certain ideas would break down and might not work with the system as currently designed. But you can do almost anything as we have envisioned this. So like, because either the region behavior can be a custom document type, which contains its own sophisticated logic, or the region behavior is just a script or a macro that you've made. Anything that you can do with a script or a macro, you can do with a region. So something like triggering a skill check or an attribute roll, absolutely possible. There's a question about, does the blur effect come with core? The blur effect is just a default pixie blur filter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a filter that everyone has access to. It's not a filter that we have made, but it is a filter that that is available to everybody. All right, great. What else can we show, Eber? What are some other fun things we could do here?
Behavior wise, I'm not sure, like I could show off a circle or something, but
do you have the bravery to try and put a hole inside this region?
I could try.
I'll let you try and do that while I answer some more questions.
Okay.
Another question: are polygon regions planned? That's another thing, Eber, if you wanted to at some point during today's stream just throw together a polygon path, and we can show how a polygon region would look. I think that would be nice to demonstrate.
Yeah, we don't have the polygon type yet, but
we don't have. That's right. It's coming.
But
it's
definitely coming.
Yes, there will be polygonal regions supported. That's a must-have for us. Thank you, Theo Orchestrator. Appreciate that. This allows for multiple overlapping regions. Yes, that's correct, Vilinian. You can have multiple overlapping regions with different behaviors, and those can be overlapping. Yes. Question from Christian about templated lighting. I assume what you mean by that is like, with lighting and sound effects, one of the things we've wanted for a while is to be able to say like, oh, there's a specific area of this sound effect or light source. Like it's not a radial point source. Here's a specific like known polygon that this source has. And that is something that we'd like to do. I think regions gives us a framework for approaching that, where we might be able to say like, this shape is where, a certain light is, or a certain sound is. That's something that I really want for, say, like sounds almost as much, if not more, than lights, to be honest. Like one of the things that I sort of crave is the ability to have like the river, the river shape like this, where the sound of the river is in a shape like this, rather than needing to put like a sequence of circles down the river. It would be nice to be able to have a shape where we can say like the sound is everywhere in this region. So things like that, that's definitely in our thinking, and we are thinking about ways we can use scene regions for sort of a wide variety of use cases where we need to know what is the shape of a thing. I think scene regions gives us a very powerful and flexible tool to do that. And so there may be a future where like a sound source or a light source can point to a scene region and reuse its geometry. Question from Ash Eon. When it comes to overlapping regions, are the overlapping regions aware that they're overlapping? Is there a way to declare priority on the region application? Great question. We've talked a little bit about priority. Eber, what's our current thinking on that topic?
I think it should be like if there's a priority needed for the behavior, I think the behavior should define the priority. Yeah, not sure. Like some behaviors don't care about priority, right? Others may. Others might only care about the priority among behaviors of the same type. So yeah. Probably not a priority on all behaviors, like a general priority. Maybe it's up to the behavior itself.
Eber has done a cool example here of a region now that has two shapes, a rectangle and a circle, and the circle is a hole inside the rectangle, and the token that's inside the hole. I think maybe the highlight isn't quite working, but basically you can imagine.
I disabled the highlight because I only implemented the highlighting for the outermost.
For the outermost
polygon.
Shape. Okay. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, you can see basically like it's very powerful in terms of the actual like underlying implementation. It does know when this bandit sort of moves in or out of the rectangle and the whole of the circle. So like that is not a trivial thing. Like that's very powerful that it works that way. And so it makes this framework super extensible that we can unionize these multiple shapes, including holes, to create quite complex geometries that are linked to behaviors.
We have an interesting question from Mr. Forien. Will it be possible for region to be directional? Like, could it be used for cover when shot from a specific direction?
Yeah, I think that would largely come down to the behaviors of the region. It might be interesting, like Eber, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like we have a framework in mind for custom events, right? Like modules or systems that can emit custom events for a region.
Yeah.
And so like the concept of like I am standing in this region and a bandit attacks me. The concept of I have just been attacked, that's a little bit system specific. Each system handles the concept of like attack using a slightly different approach. Like there's not a core Foundry concept for that. And so it might be that would need to be implemented at the system level. But certainly like the system could implement something like when a token is attacked, if that token is in a particular region, you could emit like a I've been attacked event. And then once you emit that I've been attacked event, different behaviors of the region could take action. So you could potentially do something with that attack because you've emitted that event. Like you could increase your armor class or add damage absorption or something like that. So I think there is a theoretical way forward with what is proposed by this question, but it would be, I think, a little bit more like custom implementation on the system side. Is that how you would think about it, Eber?
Yeah. Maybe this kind of example wouldn't necessarily need events. Like if this region like increases the armor class or something like that, that could just be
Yeah, I think the
something that's
directionality of it was basically like implying that there was a kind of array involved between the attacker and the target, that certain directions might trigger that behavior and others would not.
yeah.
A question from 117 KK. Do you foresee ever adding support for moving regions, such as an aura replacement that creates a region that centers on and follows an actor? Yeah, I hope so. I think, as I mentioned, like one of the things we need to get in is like when the region changes, we need to emit events. Certainly, like we want to be careful. I don't want to overpromise because we don't want to like set ourselves up for some sort of performance issue. But you can imagine like if this region is moving across the scene, as it moves, different tokens are going to enter or exit the moving region, and that would require some careful thinking. But yeah, in theory, we could have a moving region where like when Acra moves a region, much like a measured template that's centered around Acra also moves, and then any tokens that are now in that new region of effect would have those token enter events triggered. Whether from an events perspective we differentiate between the token entered and the region moved on top of you, like we might end up treating those as two different events because they might have potentially different ramifications, but we don't have a solution for that yet. But I think there is a theoretical approach that could be taken. Pirates of the Caribbean, you have a skeletal token when it's in this region. I love that. Yeah, like change the token appearance when they're in the ghost light or something. They show their true form. That'd be super cool. The possibilities are considerable for creating gameplay moments using this framework. All right. Anything else that we should show right now? I mean, we have other topics to get to, but scene regions and triggers and region behaviors is definitely one of the biggest things that we're doing in V12. So I10X asks about the expected or experienced performance impact of the feature. I think we've done some really good work to be as frugal as possible in some of the geometry calculations. So Eber's done a lot of great work in thinking about how we conceptualize the region as like cached geometries that only update as necessary. And so some of the like heavier geometry calculations related to scene regions are handled in a quite efficient way. Ultimately, the performance impacts of scene regions will come down to, in a large degree, the efficiency of the operations of their behaviors, and many of those behaviors are ones that we will offer, and the behaviors we offer will design them in a way that we don't have any reservations about performance, but it will definitely be possible to write custom behaviors that tank performance. That will be possible. It's sort of one of those like with great power sort of situations, and we give you enough rope on that. So it is something that is sort of assumes some responsibility for the user to not do something crazy. And if come V12 stable, if people are seeing like, oh, my GM is using scene regions, but my Foundry frame rate drops to 5 FPS, it's probably because of something that the scene region is scripted to do, or possibly. I mean, I think we can't guarantee that the performance of these behaviors will be flawless, but I think we will guarantee that the performance of our core offered behaviors will be have minimal to zero impact on gameplay.
As long as you don't animate the region's shapes, most of the performance is probably on the behaviors themselves.
Yeah, the heavyweight operation happens when the shape of the region changes. So
yeah.
Chaos asks, will this new feature include a solution for the halting problem? Eber, do you have a thought
Halting
on that?
of tokens, stopping movement, or
I assume this may. I don't know, Kim. Do you know what is being discussed here?
The halting problem, yeah, it's a problem from computer science. It's unsolvable. Yeah.
Okay. I don't spend too much time on unsolvable problems. You got me with that question. For sure. I've been found out. All right. Cool. Let's move on, shall we? We got other good stuff to showcase. Next up on our list is application v2. I'll try and keep this one brief because it's not quite as like shiny as some of the others. It is much more focused on our underlying API. But we are developing new applications, a new application framework for the software. And there's already been people experimenting with it. And this new application v2 framework is designed to eventually replace and upgrade the way that all applications in the software are rendered. So just a quick clarification for people in terms of terminology. What do I mean by an application? That's a term we use for an interface element. So the sidebar is an application, the player's widget down at the bottom left, the hotbar, the scene controls, the scene navigation at the top, the token HUD when you right click on a token. These are all applications, and character sheet, it's an application. So we have a new framework for doing those that has a bunch of new features. It is going to be a gradual rollout, and the way that rollout is starting is on the setup menu of Foundry. So I'm going to actually return to setup for a second, and I hope I don't really have too much spoilers there. Yeah, so on the setup menu, I think my systems tab is pretty non-spoilery. On the setup tab, all of these pieces of the setup menu are being converted to new application types. So for example, this like package warnings, if you really carefully scrutinize it, you'll notice that like the aesthetic style of the package warnings UI is slightly different than it was previously, in terms of like the display of the frame and everything, and that's because it's a new application v2. And so we're rolling that out to all of the various apps on the setup page, and once we've done that for the setup page, we're going to see how much time we have, and we'll probably pick a couple of low impact apps in the game view to to do this same treatment for. So I don't know exactly which ones these will be, but like for example, this join game screen, this is now being rendered with an application v2 API, and so yeah, I mean, a lot of these like to the end user will be seamless, but under the hood, this is being rendered in a faster, more performant, more powerful framework that overall has a lot of nice features for us as developers and for other users as well. I don't know really what else to say about application v2 because it's so much just like a programmatic paradigm. But maybe I will say like we're envisioning a long process where application v1 continues to be fully supported for quite a while. So like we're not creating any urgency for our developers to have to change. I think it will be a longer than normal deprecation period. And I don't even think application v1 will be flagged as deprecated in v12. That might happen potentially in v13. But at some point, we'll say like, okay, application v1 is now on the slow sunset path, and you should move over to app v2. I don't think that's going to be in v12. I think in v12, app v2 will be like an optional opt-in, like you can use it if you want. And we'll probably pick a few little apps, that maybe are sort of more low risk, that modules probably aren't like really overriding a lot. Like we might do like the invitation links, or something like that, where we'll convert those to an app v2 and start rolling that out to some apps gradually over time. But some of the higher impact apps like actor sheets and stuff, that's going to be something that we'll have to approach very slowly and with a lot of caution. Question from Christian Serrano about what are some of the biggest benefits of V2 for devs and designers. I think that it solves a lot of like small problems that have kind of piled up a lot with applications over the years, like economy and UX of the header and header buttons, improved performance for rendering, a separation of rendering backend from application logic. So like we have it set up where handlebars is a rendering backend that's used. We use it for our apps, but we've abstracted that out so that the base application class is sort of agnostic to how it's rendered. And so there's people that are using other rendering backends like Vue or React or Svelte as ways to handle how they actually generate HTML inside their apps. And that's a nicer framework that's more flexible, and you don't have to fight against it as much if you want to use one of those sorts of frameworks. If you are a handlebars user, and we like handlebars, and so, no shame in that. The new app v2 handlebars backend supports partial rendering, so you can divide your app in a more modular way into different components. You can imagine, like, the new D&D character sheet is not an app v2, not yet, but you can imagine eventually it might be, where like this little left sidebar with your portrait and your health bars and stuff and your favorites, like that might be a template component. The header might be a component. This main attributes tab might be a part of the app. Your inventory might be a different part. And that would allow you to say, like, I want to just re-render your spells tab. I don't want to re-render the entire app. And that's a quite powerful paradigm.
Certainly each tab. Very, very easy one. Breakout.
Another nicety, I guess, of app v2 is it's more friendly for registering the most common types of event handling paradigms, like form submission. You can have multiple forms in an app now, where previously you were limited to just one massive form for the whole app. Click handlers, like the most common UX that exists in any sort of app is like, I click on a button and something happens. So like I click on the short rest button and I should have this short rest dialog pop up. Those sorts of click handlers are much easier to register now. There's some standardized framework for that. We've also gotten rid of a reliance on jQuery, which was kind of some people like it, controversial choice for some. App v2 doesn't use jQuery. You're welcome to use jQuery if you want. There's nothing that rules out, that precludes it, but we're not forcing use of jQuery anymore in app v2. Yeah. Question from Hector Gray: how app v2 would interact if you wanted to do stuff with WebAssembly. So it's possible to load WebAssembly code in Foundry, and you can have a worker that's running WebAssembly. What tasks you delegate to that worker is an important architectural choice, but it is possible to delegate certain tasks to WebAssembly and to do those in a separate worker thread, and whether that's the right choice for your application or not, unclear. There are some significant in our experience, there's some significant performance costs of passing data, And so the suitability of your task for WebAssembly honestly ends up depending a lot on like how much data and what structure of data you need to pass back and forth.
Yeah. Crossing that JavaScript assembly barrier is expensive.
Yeah, so for many tasks, you can actually even slow yourself down because the execution of the WebAssembly, even though that execution is super fast, the round trip cost of getting your data into WebAssembly and getting the result back out can sometimes be slower than the, execution time that is gained.
Yeah. Don't we use it? Don't we have some? Is it Clipper that's in WebAssembly?
No, not Clipper.
The fog persistence. Well,
But
so
that's just a worker, right?
it's a worker. It's a
Just
worker.
a worker.
Similar
It's not
concept
a...
though.
Oh,
Some
I was
similar
thinking
concepts,
of.
but yeah.
I was thinking of Basis, yeah, which is not in Foundry. It's
Yeah.
in secret projects.
All right. Well, that's a little bit of a blurb on application v2. If there's any questions, happy to take some more questions from chat as we go. But we can move on to the next topic. But definitely there's open dev threads in the server, in the Discord server about application v2. And so encourage everyone, if you're curious, to join in those conversations and ask questions there. Please dig into it. We're excited to get feedback on how it's working for you and continue developing that out. All right, next one has to do with darkness sources. This is something that we prioritized a little bit recently. I'm going to switch to a different world for this because I think the house divided world will be like a little bit nicer to use to show this. I probably need to make a couple of users for you all.
Already have one.
Let me see. I think I need one for Eber. Yeah. Okay. Good enough. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about darkness. We have for a long time in Foundry, we've supported darkness sources, which is often used for spells like darkness in 5e or other things like that. And they have historically been sort of aesthetic in that like they make the scene look darker, but they don't necessarily enforce some of the rules that a darkness source mechanically in certain game systems needs to enforce. So Ludovic, do you want to talk a little bit about like what we're in the process of changing?
Yeah, there is some fundamental change between ancient darkness framework and the new. Like with Foundry V11, darkness is not blocking vision, for example. You can have a patch of darkness somewhere, but you could see behind this darkness if there is light behind this darkness. And so here, this is not what we expect with darkness.
Yeah, let's show sort of what an old school darkness source would look like. We kind of drop the. I don't know if I'll really be able to make this look the way that it. Actually, I think because of our code changes, we're not getting the like really low luminosity anymore. So I probably can't show in this build what like an old school darkness source would look like. So you'll have to imagine it, but it would be a dark circle that you can see through, but it's not really enforcing the rules of vision.
It is just suppressing detection inside its area, but it is not blocking visions.
Yeah.
And doing some other things that darkness should do, at least what it should do in an agnostic way. So the new darkness, in fact, is using walls to to recompute all light source and a vision source around it. And so now vision is blocked. So if you are placing a darkness somewhere, this is acting like a wall. Character with vision won't be able to see through it. And behind it, this is walls and it is blocking visions and light. Can we do a little demo of it?
Yeah, I have one here, and
Okay.
light sources that are inside the darkness, they become suppressed. So these lights are no longer active; like they go out when the darkness source is over the light. Those lights get deactivated, and then also, this token. If we control the token, now there is a really important thing to note is that currently, and this is still a to do, currently from the token's perspective, it's difficult to understand like why I can't see into this circle. That's something we're absolutely going to work on addressing. We need to give a stronger visual cue about like why is this region not observed, but that's something that we'll be working on during later phases of V12. What's important that we have done so far is that this source of darkness is actually blocking your vision entirely, so you're not seeing into that area. Anything inside that area is going to be concealed, like this Onyx Knight who's inside the area. We have no visibility of that Onyx Knight. We lose sight of them completely. And also, you're not seeing past it. So like this hallway beyond the darkness source, if I disable the darkness source, you see from this token's perspective, like we can look all the way down this hallway and see like what's sort of further in the distance of the house. But when the darkness source is enabled, we're not seeing past it. It becomes an impenetrable barrier to your vision. And so that's going to be able to interact also with vision modes, right? Like we'll be able to support vision modes that ignore this. So like if you have like a Devil's Sight or something character, you can like configure your character so you can like ignore this type of darkness source and see anyways.
Yeah, this is it will be done in during the development phase, but we have priority which is planned also. So you will be able to set a priority on light or vision, and the vision or light with a better priority is winning over a darkness with a lower priority. In case of tie, this is always darkness which is winning. This is what we have. This is our intention for the next iteration. Of course, vision modes and all special detection mode will be able to interact nicely with darkness. For example, you won't be affected by darkness if you have a tremor sense, or if you have a sense all, which is not relying on vision, for example, to see. For example, it should work if you are putting a detection mode on your token of type sense all. You should see a token inside the darkness.
Yeah, so if I give this token a sense all, let's say sense all 60 feet, so I can like sense all of these creatures around me. If this token goes inside the darkness, I can still sense that it's there. Even though I don't have vision towards it. Also, there was a question from TJ about like the darkness source not being interacting with walls. That was just intentional for the demo. I configured this light source to not be constrained by walls, but we could have, of course, a darkness source that is constrained by walls as well.
Yeah. So one of the things which is changing with V11 is as now dark source are blocking vision, we are not seeing the animation on it. So this is planned for the next iteration. We will have some on the edges of the darkness. We will have some moving tendrils, like to know that you have something happening in this particular area.
Yeah, we'll think of some way that we can visually signpost that this is a darkness source, because we do need the players to be able to recognize that they're seeing a barrier of darkness, but we don't necessarily want to reveal what the full shape of that darkness is, because you shouldn't be able to know, is this just a very small patch of darkness, or does it go on and on and on way back into the whole area? Like, you shouldn't be able to know how far it goes. You should just be able to understand what that outer edge of it represents.
And you will see the darkness if you have a priority, for example, for your site. If you have a priority over the darkness priority, then you will be able to see the full animation.
Yeah, you would be able to see it. And another really cool thing is, I love what we're then able to do with vision once you are inside the darkness source as well. So we have, you can see as the token moves into the darkness source, we lose vision of the world. So we're sort of lost in the darkness right now. And I think what we need to do still, we need to make a couple of refinements there. Ideally, we want it to kind of function the same as like the blinded effect, where you still see like a little outline of your character. But we maybe need to make a couple of little modifications there or something to make it work. But
when you are moving into darkness, the darkness is suppressing all your site based visions and detections.
Yeah, I think there might actually be an issue, because when I disabled my sense all Ludovic, and now I go into the darkness, now I actually can see, like, now it sort of looks the way I would expect it to look. I have this sort of blinded sort of aesthetic, but if I had, I don't know, I'll have to see if I can reproduce that.
There was if you have a sense all?
Yeah, there was some sort of weirdness. No, it's still doing it now. Maybe it had to do with fog exploration. Maybe like when I went into the darkness with sense all enabled, like it was giving me fog exploration or something.
Yeah, we need to improve how the darkness is interacting with fog explored and unexplored area.
There's still some work to do. There is still
some work to do in this area.
Yeah. So if I don't get that fog exploration, it's a little bit weird. But we have an opportunity still to improve that. It's a currently active work stream, but this is part of it that the big part of it that we get right now is that the darkness sources are able to actually like stop your vision at the initial edge rather than simply suppressing things that are within.
Someone asked about windows, but we actually already have. We have windows, but I think they're already quite complicated. I don't think we have any plans for darkness windows.
Probably at the moment, what we're going to be able to do for V12 is sort of an all or nothing darkness like this. The way that it works in the configuration is that the light source has a is darkness source checkbox, and that's a change in the user experience versus the prior that like you're turning the luminosity negative, which is more of an aesthetic property. This is more of a mechanical property of like, does it enforce this restriction on perception?
And we have no database property for darkness, and this is really a structural change.
Cool. All right, let's see. Just seeing if there's any questions. We also need to do a little bit of improvement around like, there's a little bit of a glitch with like moving the darkness source.
Yeah, this is identified and I'm covered in dust of the canvas mines.
Yeah. Back to the cavern. Very, very soon. Yeah. Awesome. Well, great stuff. Really excited by this change to darkness. I think this is something that was kind of a little bit of an awkward aspect of the way that this mechanically played out in Foundry previously. So yeah, really good stuff. Question from Search is, can the source of the darkness be rectangular in shape? As soon as we enable support for like specialized light source polygons, which as I mentioned earlier in the stream is something that we would really like to do, as soon as we enable support for those specialized polygon or shapes geometries for light sources, that those special geometries will should, maybe I'd say should instead of will, work for darkness sources also. We would work to solve that as the general problem of how to enable that for all light sources, though, rather than specifically for darkness sources. Cool. All right. Next up is Fulfillable Rolls. Very fun. Let's do it. Why don't we start with a little bit of history of fulfillable roles and synchronous versus asynchronous roles? Kim, do you want to provide a little bit of like historical context?
Yeah, so I guess in the beginning, there was synchronous roles.
In the beginning of time.
Beginning of time, there were synchronous roles because we're using a pseudo random number generator. The sort of the thing that most games, for example, will use to generate random numbers for dice. And that's done synchronously because it's just a little algorithm that goes along a sequence of numbers and gives you random results. So that can be done synchronously. So we ended up with an API that had synchronous roles, but I don't remember. I think you'll have to fill in this actually, like when it became apparent that we wanted to break out of that, because Bluetooth dice were a thing, but they were a thing more recently, I feel, than when this decision was made. So it couldn't have been just
I think the sort of
Bluetooth
the precursor requests for non-synchronous roles sort of were largely about like can we delegate random number generation out to like an external web service. There were also some early prototypes of like using some like ML image recognition, like via a camera to like you're rolling like physical dice, and can the camera like see the dice and recognize which number was rolled. As a
yeah.
That was a cool project that was being worked on. And then, of course, more recently, of course, like Bluetooth Dice, Go Dice, and Pixels, two of our partners that we're very proud to work with, making very cool products. So in order to support these sorts of use cases, we needed a framework where when a dice roll is required, it did not require that to be fulfilled in a synchronous scope. We needed to be able to do an asynchronous operation in order to get the result of the roll. And we kind of hacked our way into it using a module called Unfulfilled Rolls for a while. And that allowed us to get the Go Dice and Pixels integrations off the ground. But really, to have this be scalable and maintainable in the long run, we needed to refactor the way that our role framework would work in order to be fundamentally asynchronous. And so that's been a long path. We started that work in, what, V8?
V8, yeah. Yeah, and that's really the key. I mean, this is a dev stream, so maybe I can get a bit technical, but asynchronicity is contagious. You have to have everything up the entire chain be asynchronous. Well, you don't have to, but things get weird otherwise. And so it's not enough to so the key is that it needs to be fundamentally asynchronous. The root the root operation needs to be asynchronous, and then maybe you can have some synchronous paths, but really, the root of the tree needs to be asynchronous. And sort of fundamentally, philosophically, the idea of fulfilling non-deterministic inputs is like an asynchronous thing, or at least we claim that it is. It can be done synchronously, as we've shown with the pseudo random number generator, but conceptually it's kind of like an asynchronous operation. So the API just fits a bit better around that, where you have the whole thing is asynchronous, and then little parts of it that are deterministic can be synchronous, like evaluating a math function, for example. Those are deterministic, so those can be synchronous, but everything else.
Yeah. So, anyways, what we've done in versions leading up to V12 is we sort of paved the road for all of these roles to be asynchronous, and now in V12 we finally slammed the door on the whole process, and we've completed that lengthy migration period. Now we are still offering the ability to synchronously evaluate deterministic expressions. So like, strength plus 4, or proficiency plus 4 divided by 3, or your class level divided by 7. Those sorts
that's
of
still supported.
That's still supported for synchronous evaluation, and that's important because often like that's needed during actor data preparation or something. Like your stats depend on those sorts of functions, but they're not random. It's like what's important is that the number of hit points you have doesn't change every time you open your character sheet in a random way. The maximum number of hit points you have may depend on a function, but it's not a stochastic function. It's not a random. It's not a function that returns a random result. And so yes,
you'll see that actually in the 5e system. Like you can add bonuses to your initiative, but as soon as you put a dice term in there, it stops showing you the bonuses and just gives up.
If I go to the main tab, we have initiative of +3. I could add I guess is initiative configured over here now?
Yeah, in the edit mode.
In the edit mode. Like we could add a initiative bonus of +1d6, and that would be included when you actually roll initiative, but it's not statically displayed on your character sheet.
That's right. The sheet, when it's preparing data and it sees a non-deterministic term, just kind of
But if we put in +3, then we do get the deterministic +6 initiative that you would have with that static bonus.
That's right.
So anyways, long story short, we're getting let's get to what is actually fulfillable roles. Now that roles are asynchronous, we have new support in the UI under configure settings to set up a dice configuration. And what that can do is it can allow you to configure for different dice terms, different die types, how you want to actually roll. And by default, these are all, Foundry VTT digital roll. So when I go to my character sheet and I roll an insight check 1d20, my 1d20 is digitally rolled. It just rolls automatically as soon as I roll the check. But if I were to change my desired dice configuration mode for the d20 to be, say, manual input, then when I roll my insight check, I can, of course, as is the right and proper result, I can say I rolled a 20, which of course I did. You all saw it. I rolled a 20. And so, we can configure where your rolls are coming from. Now, there is probably a little bit of work to do on transparency of information, especially when manual rolls are concerned. We don't have a solution for that yet, but we will want some way for people to know that this was a manually entered roll, rather than something that was legitimately, rather than something that was randomly determined by a die. But it's sort of a little bit of a proof of concept that determines like how you want to roll. But manual entry is not intended for you to just make up the result. The purpose for manual entry is for someone who wants to, I want to roll my acrobatics check using my go grab some dice from my shelf, roll them on my table right in front of me, and then I'll just say, oh, okay, I rolled a 7, so I'll just put in that 7, and then that shows up in Foundry so that everyone can, follow along with the result. But manual rolls is not the only thing that this system allows us to do, and so if we go back to the dice configuration, let's change from a manual input to, say, Pixels electronic dice. Very fun. So you can all be jealous. I've got my pixels here. Let's do a quick demo. So here's my shiny math rocks. So Pixels has a companion module that is needed to facilitate this. So like you wouldn't have Pixels show up as an option in this list unless you have the Pixels module installed. But what I can do for Pixels is I can go to configure it, and we get this nice little configuration UI for connecting my Pixels dice, so they connect via Bluetooth. And so I can go and I can pair these dice. So here's the first one, there it's paired, and then I'll pair the second one here.
It won't show up on stream, but there's like the browser Bluetooth.
Yeah, there's the browser Bluetooth dialog. That one.
Dialog.
There it goes. So now I've got both of my Bluetooth dice paired using Pixels. Oh, and it just thought I rolled because I was holding them up. Sometimes if you pick them up and move them around, it thinks you're rolling them, of course. But
there is a firmware update. You might not have installed it.
I have not.
I didn't.
Yeah, I have not.
I should have reminded you, but yeah, you can install it via the app. There's like a firmware update which does improve that a little bit. Yeah.
But let's show. So I'm gonna go to say like roll my insight check. Let's say I have advantage on insight, so it wants me to roll a 2d20, and you'll see in the roll resolution dialog that pops up here, we can see like you're supposed to roll this using Pixels. Now what you can do is I can just say no, I don't want to do that, so I'm just gonna submit. If you submit without rolling using Pixels, you just get, it falls back to a digital roll. However, if we actually want to roll this insight check using Pixels, I'll tilt my camera down here so we can see, like, I'll roll my 2d20 and those two results get picked up by the Pixels, and you see it's a 6 and an 8, and that's what goes into the roll resolution, and it figured out the advantage, and so it kept the 8 and discarded the 6. It also supports things like, suppose I want to roll, like, let's do like 6d20 reroll less than 5. Here it would see that I need to roll 6d20s, so I can start picking up and rolling. I got a 6 and a 12. Here's some more. Here's another one. And then it looks like I actually get some rerolls here because I rolled some of them that were in fact less than 5. So it prompts me, all right, roll another one. Great. Roll another one. Great. So you actually get rerolls, exploding dice. You get any additional like triggered roll that would happen as a result of the initial roll also happens here. So for example, like roll 4d20x greater than 15, like exploding dice. We'll roll some d20s here, 5 and a 6, 18 and a 17, and then you see there's a nice like little explode icon in the dialogue. So we see like we get another exploding dice from that, and got a 15, so it keeps exploding. And then we get a natural 1, so then we stop, and those are our exploding support for rerolls, support for exploding dice, all built into the roll resolver.
It was not simple.
It was not simple.
Rolling workflows are tricky from a UX and an API perspective.
Yeah, and it's not just for the GM. It's not just for whoever's running the server. Because it's using web Bluetooth to connect to your web browser, like any player at the table, like Kim, you could be using your pixels, or and it's not like a setting that is for the whole server either. These resolution modes are per client. So like I could be using pixels, Eber could be using Go Dice, Ludovic could be making manual rolls and punching in the results, and someone else could just be using the default like Foundry digital rolls. So each player at the table can choose whichever dice fulfillment method they want to use. Now, as I mentioned, we do need to sort of make it transparent, I think, in terms of like which resolution method was used. I think there is sort of a little bit of a potential trust issue that we need to look at from a UX perspective, but I think that's that's solvable.
Definitely solvable. That'll be one of the easier ones. I saw some questions. I don't know if we're going to questions. There were some.
Yeah, and we could also experiment with. There's other things like we could allow the GM to say like disable manual rolls as an option. Like that's another way that like we could have a GM only setting that like locks certain options away. Yeah, so I mean, I think there, we haven't focused on the permission and the sort of that sort of aspect of this yet. We've been focusing on like what's the technical solution to actually get the rolls from my pixels dice into Foundry. But now that we've accomplished that, we'll be able to address some of those other things.
Yeah, it's the prototype, so time for polishing is later. Mm-hmm. But if you have feedback, definitely leave it in the normal channels, which is usually Discord or GitHub. There was a question about, I think from Bolts J, about is there going to be any way to synchronously get a random dice roll beside math.random? So there is a way to add your own fulfillment methods. There are two types of fulfillment methods. They're interactive ones and non-interactive ones. Interactive ones are ones that require user input to fulfill in some way. So like they wait for the user to roll their dice or input something. And non-interactive ones are ones which don't require any user input. They can just be fulfilled programmatically in some way. But neither of those are synchronous. Dice, any sort of deterministic dice fulfillment is asynchronous by nature. So even
you can, of course, if your system for some reason absolutely requires it, you can math.random times number of faces and sealing it. But
that's right. Yeah, but I don't think you can integrate that into the API. Not as it currently is. There was a question about the unfulfilled roles module.
So that module will no longer be necessary in V12. Yes. So that module will go away. But for Pixels or Go Dice users, you'll probably have a module update. In fact, for the Pixels stuff, of course, there's an update that Kim you've made available. It's not released on the website yet, but is Pixels release 0.20, which removes this dependency and integrates with V12. So if you're testing, if you happen to have your Pixels, if you've gotten them yet, you can try them out with V12 by installing this version of the Pixels module, and it'll work just like I've just demonstrated on stream.
Yeah, we're working with Go Dice on updating their module.
Yep.
So
that should be hopefully soon. At some point. Soon as well, although there's not really a lot of urgency because V12 is not stable yet, but that will be coming for sure.
There was a question like whether they would be backported to the unfulfilled roles module in V11, but the answer to that is no, because this requires core improvements. It requires us to have fully asynchronous rolls for this to work with exploding dice and rerolls and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to how well it plays with macros and scripts, it's the role API. So any normal invocation of a role using the role class is fully integrated with this. It will prompt the user for their resolver for their roles based on what they've got configured. Yeah. So I guess that answers Man's question as well. Every instance of rolling dice, yes. If the user has said they want to roll their d20s with pixels, whenever there's a d20 die roll called, they'll get prompted to roll their d20s, and it's up to them whether they want to roll them or fast forward them with and just let the digital rolls take over.
We could perhaps consider a option for like roll evaluate method that forces digital fulfillment.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Like this is the time to give that sort of feedback. That's why we do these prototypes.
I could imagine some use cases. Like I have this system that I noodle away on called Crucible. It's just my own idea, and like it has a mechanic where like at the start of the combat round, initiative gets re-rolled. Would every currently that's sort of automated to like avoid bogging down too much. Is that something that I would like want to have the GM have to re-roll for every combatant? That could be like quite a lot, or just a lot of button clicking to sort of say like no. So I don't know. Maybe there is like some use case to like have an option for a role evaluation that kind of requests a digital fulfillment backend.
You could be able to maybe like pass in the method that you want to use, and if you do know method to use the configured one. That is a good question about inline rolls. I don't know. I think it will actually prompt.
It should.
But that's a bit
like
it
does,
eagerly
it does
evaluated inline rolls. That is like ones that just get evaluated.
I think it will prompt you. Yeah, like if you open a journal entry and there's a role in it that you have to make, and like you'll get prompted.
Yeah, I think so.
Whether that's desirable or not, I don't know. It might not be. So like that might be a use case where we would want those eagerly evaluated inline roles to like prefer digital fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just a prototype, so.
Yep. All right, next topic, drawings. This is an exciting one for me. I think it's something that I'm a little bit happy that we've gotten done. So Ludovic worked on this, and it's an interesting situation where we've changed the way that drawings work. Ludovic, I'll pass it over to you to explain, but I can provide a little bit of introduction in that we've kind of gone back and forth in the past about like, is a drawing a interface concept, or is a drawing something that depicts a tangible object within the game space? And ultimately there's no answer to that question except yes. And so yes, this is definitely like a why not both situation. And so we've made our drawings more flexible. And Ludovic, you can talk about it and I'll just draw things while you do that.
Yeah. In fact, we have introduced the notion of role. So now drawings have roles. You have two roles. You have a role, the object role. The object role is for drawings which are parts of the canvas, parts of the gameplay. For example, if you are drawing a bridge, or you want to...
It's a puddle of blood.
Yeah,
it's blood.
Something like that. So this drawing has the object role and is part of the canvas, so it is into the primary canvas group, and it will be affected by lightning. You could also add some text on it, but you must have in mind that it is part of the canvas, part of the gameplay. The other rule
Yeah, so just a
is
moment before we
yeah.
reveal the other role. So like
Oh
if I've not seen this room
yeah.
before, like it's hidden by fog of war, but once I have seen it, I know that this puddle of blood is there, and so if I move out of sight of it again, like
Yeah.
it's part of the world. This puddle of blood that's there is a tangible thing, and so that's an object. That's a drawing that represents an object.
Yeah, you can see this drawing role object as a kind of a tile, an asset you will put on the canvas, on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, fog of war, everything, lightning is working as normal uh, for uh, for this drawing.
Yeah.
The
So
other role,
go ahead.
the other role is information. This is when we want to use drawing to provide information to players. And we don't want this drawing to be affected by lightning, to be crystal clear. And so this information is rendered into the interface canvas group. So it won't be affected by the fog of war. You will see it anyway. You can turn it off or on if you want to display it or not to the players, but everyone will be able to see it. So the drawing and the text are now linked, maybe an object role or an information role, and they will be drawn into the same place. So here for information, it is the interface canvas group.
I'm always in the games that I play in Foundry wanting to like concoct elaborate plans with my fellow players about like oh
Yeah,
we should follow this path, or like let's go over this way, and I always want to use drawings to like communicate that information, but previously it would break down as soon as like we're pointing the drawing into a region of the map that we haven't visited yet. So like if this was an object drawing, we would only see the part of the arrow. Like my plan is useless here, and so this is sort of a way to have two different use cases for what the drawing is intended for. Is it supposed to represent something tangible, something real in the world, or is it simply used to transfer information between players? And so it's kind of a fourth wall thing. Like, is it player information or is it character information? Is another way perhaps to think about it.
yeah. And so about the user interface into the drawing tools, we have added a toggle. So you can, if you want to draw information drawing, you can toggle the information icon, and you can then put all your drawing will be created as information drawing. And if you are disabling the information toggle, you will do by default object drawings. Of course, you can also change the role directly into the config.
Mm-hmm. There's not currently a permission gate of any kind, but if it's an interesting thing that we would be open to feedback on, if like one type of drawing is fundamentally more permissible than the other. Currently, the permission configuration that does exist is simply for all drawings. Does the user have permission to use the drawing tools at all? And if you have permission to create drawings, you can create both types. But if there is a use case to to separate those permissions, that's something that we could consider.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, this is a sort of simple feature, but I think it's really important, and I think it's something that's been a missing component for Foundry for a while. That like, it's not easy to make these sorts of quick annotations of like, like I think we need to go up here. This sort of thing like just wasn't really possible before because of the limitations on the system, and having this ability to treat something as just purely informational is really useful. All right. We have one other big feature that was not in prototype 2, but has gotten some exciting work since then. Eber, do you want to describe the bonus feature which now exists?
Yeah. Well, in prototype 1, we added sorting, like token sorting, sort option to tokens.
Yeah.
Like
So
these kind of
this is an example
buttons.
of like, is my character underneath the dragon wing, or am I on top of the dragon's back?
Yeah, but one annoying problem, probably everyone already experienced. Let's say the dragon was slain and is dead, and you would give him the dead status effect. Now you want to step on top of the dragon.
Previously, you'd be in trouble here.
Yeah, you would be covered by the skull. Now it is working.
He
The
says,
interface
exultantly,
elements are still rendered outside of the primary, but the new rendering technique, we are able to solve this problem, and interface elements will basically be rendered in the same place as if they were like all in the primary group and stacked on top of each other nicely. And yeah, so now you can, like what I've been doing in my games. If a token is killed, I would straight away delete it to clear up the space for. I wouldn't bother with a skull icon at all. Yeah, this might be unironically my favorite feature about V12. Even if it's like a minor thing, but it comes up so often with encounters.
Not the folder styling.
The what?
The folder styling.
Yeah, that's also a minor thing. Yeah, the little things are the most important.
That's really why Eber wanted this job to begin with.
Now I can quit.
Fix all the little
on
shit
everything.
that bothered him forever.
So, why do we have the old skull icon?
I don't know, Kim. You tell me.
I'm on the latest D&D, and it's the new skull icon. I don't know what's happened. It's okay.
Maybe
just a blip.
It says 303. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. I wonder if it's house divided.
I think it's
so. It
you
has
need the latest
other
dev
new.
branch.
It has other new icons.
Yeah, it's got the other ones.
What's going on there?
It's a.
Stop the stream.
Well, that's fine. It might be like a V12, V11 thing as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Well.
Sure.
Anyways, we'll figure that out. I'm sure.
We'll get that fixed.
But yeah, great new feature. We also another thing we can show on this map is the new tile features, Ludovic, for getting rid of roofs. We decided that roof tiles weren't important, so we got rid of them.
Yeah, no more roof tile.
No more roofs.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
So
that's it. That's the
feature. So we decided to make this option more granular. In fact, roof is not meaning it's not meaningful, and we like to provide the option where the properties of roof in V11, you can now decide for a tile to block light or block vision. And
Yeah, so we've got this. I can show an example
yeah,
using this big tree canopy, which previously, I don't know whether it was previously treated as a roof or not, but
yeah. So if it was treated as a wall, as a roof, you should have both the restrict
well, I was
light and
playing. I was
restrict
playing
weather.
with it. I was playing with it
Oui.
earlier, so I don't know what it was originally.
Okay.
But if we turn off restricts light, for example, we see that there's light sources. There's light sources all under this canopy. I can show off. This is another place I can show off the new cool sort of V12 hover fading. So when you hover over an overhead, when you hover over a tile, it will fade away, so you can easily see like what's underneath it. There's all these little light sources around the trunk of this tree, all these lanterns, and the question is like, what should happen to those light sources? Should those light sources apply to the tile that's above them or not? Here they are, and I mean, maybe you'd say that looks nice. I don't know. Aesthetically, it's not the worst, but maybe you say like these are thick leaves. They should not, like, you shouldn't be able to see the light through the leaves. So if we turn on restricts light, then the light sources underneath the tile are not applying to the canopy. So like you still have those lights, they're still there when you are going, when you're exploring this area, you get the beautiful lighting effects, but they're not illuminating the top of the tree because those lights are underneath. And this was previously something that roofs did. It's just you didn't have granular control. You couldn't say like, well, for this tile I want it to allow light, and for this tile I don't want it to allow light. The other one, of course, is blocking weather. So like this scene has one of these like little floating autumn leaves effects, and currently those leaves are here as well underneath the tile. You might or might not want that depending on whether you feel it's appropriate, and so you have granular control over whether or not whether or not the tile restricts weather effects. So if I enable that, then there's no more floating leaves underneath the canopy. Only when it is not occluded, they're still above the canopy, of course. So yeah, that's the feature. The restricts weather basically is like, does it block weather from above down? And restricts light is, does it block light from below up?
Yeah. And yeah, I think this granular option is nice because depending of the thing you want to do with your asset. For example, for this tree, you could weather should maybe not be blocked, and you should just restrict light, for example. So yeah, I think breaking this into more granular option was the way to go.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool thing. Really excited about that. Yeah. Is there anything else? I mean, we have lots of like little features. Kim, did you identify anything else that we should really be sure to cover today?
I did. I went through a little bit, but honestly, there wasn't a lot that we haven't already covered. I mean, a lot of it's very technical. We could cover that, I suppose, but I didn't note it down. There's a lot of API changes and things. One of the things was like custom elements.
Yep.
So the file picker, I think you can demo. I don't know if you could. I suppose you could demo the active effect status one as well.
Yep.
I think that was prototype 1, but we basically had some additional custom elements, and custom elements in general. Maybe we want to talk about a little bit how they're not intimately related to app v2, but we are using them a bit more. They're usable in Foundry. There's no real blockers with the modern JavaScript features that you can use.
Yeah, so this is like an example, sort of like multi-select tag thing. We actually need to enforce the width there and have the wrapping of the tags be a little bit better. But like this whole thing is handled via a custom element, and same with the file picker now. It's a custom element. It's a custom file picker element. Offers just a lot better like encapsulation of display and logic and different control relative to like how does a custom widget or a custom element behave. And so that's been nice to add support for those sort of custom HTML elements. It makes designing forms and things a lot more streamlined in some cases.
Yes. So they will still be sanitized out. They're not available for use in like chat messages and things, but if you want to use a custom enricher to create a custom element, you can do that. And if you want to just build them into your sheets, for example, you can do that.
Awesome.
They're available. Another one was auto form generation. I don't know how easy that would be to demo, but we could talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I could. Why don't you start talking about it, and I'll see if I can pull up something that I could show.
Okay. So those of you who are familiar with data models may have seen that they have like label properties. And those are available for you to use if you want to. But there's nothing in the core API that uses them. And now there is. So using a combination of the data you put into your data model, so like the label field, for example, and the type of the data field, so whether it's a number field or a string field, you can generate a form entirely from that data model. Each field has like a little, not for every field, but some of the more obvious ones, like number fields, for example, but and string fields have a little way that they can inform the API how they would like to be rendered as a form input. And so if you run that over an entire data model, you can get a form generated.
The region behavior config is actually completely like auto-generated from the subtype data model by default.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so if you like have a very simple region behavior, you might not even need to create a application for it, config.
Let me do this without the highlight grid behavior.
Yeah, it has the potential to save a ton of boilerplate. Like if you can imagine all of the lines of code of templates which are doing basically the same thing, and then all of the lines of code of application which are doing the same thing.
These fields like the name, the color, because the color in the region model, so we'll pull that up. If we go to the region data model here, because the color field is defined as a color field, it kind of can automatically generate form elements for configuring that field. So in the config sheet, basically it makes it very easy to generate these sorts of form things because you can just delegate them to the default form handling for the data model field. And it dramatically, as Kim said, dramatically reduces boilerplate. And it intelligently knows like a color field should have a color picker. And you don't have to, think about like, how do I do a color picker again? It just happens automatically because your data model already knows that it's a color field.
File picker probably, I don't know, file path field.
Yep, file path field does a file picker. Yep.
Yeah.
Like HTML field does can do a text editor and
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I think, do we do range inputs? Is it intelligent enough to know whether to generate a range input?
I don't think I've made that yet for like the alpha field. I guess
Alpha
would be
field,
sort of the
yeah.
one that usually is treated as like a 0-1 range. I don't think that I don't think that's been coded up yet, but yeah, it has not. But you know, each field type can have a certain piece of logic
Yep.
defined for like how does it convert to an input. So for example, like the file path field converts to an input using the file picker element. And that can be used to kind of automate the, I guess the eventual goal is like once you've defined a data model, you could almost like auto generate an entire form for that data model with very little code involved. That's something that we're going to be using pretty extensively as we refactor applications to, you know, app v2 and to do things like that. So
Yeah, there was some questions about like radio inputs, and as Chaos OS says, how do you know whether to do a select box versus select
yeah,
top down?
so the good news, like when
time.
you're using the template tag, you can always pass a custom input preference to it. So like you can use the default, like whatever the default input widget would be for that form field type, for that field type, you can use that default, or you can pass in a custom widget that would say, well, I want this number field, but I want to render it as a select drop down of choices.
That's right. Yeah. So you can do that with the API, and another one is like whether to use like checkbox group or whether to use some of the new
there's a lot of configurability there if you
widgets.
need like a specialized behavior. Yeah. All right, well, here's what I suggest. We probably could get into some other small things, but there's also probably a lot of great questions from the community. So why don't we take just a very quick AFK? We can do a giveaway for people who are watching the stream, who have taken the time to join us. We can maybe give away a couple free things. And then when we come back from that, we can take a couple of questions before we wrap up. Sound like a plan? All right, for those of you in chat, all you have to do to be eligible for the giveaway is make sure you're logged in. So like make sure you're logged into Twitch so that your username shows up in the actual list of active viewers, and then you'll be automatically entered as eligible to win. I don't know if I ever fixed the bug that happened in the last dev stream with the roll table. Did that bug ever get fixed? Are we going to hit that bug again? We might hit the same bug again. I'm not sure that bug got fixed, but
I don't know if I ever got
let's just run headfirst into it. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back in just a second. Going to put up an AFK screen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes, and we'll do that giveaway.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Hello, we're back. Thank you for sticking with us. I have created a giveaway random roll table for everybody in chat, 246 of you, excluding moderators. I think there's a bug that's preventing the like nice animation of the roll table, so we'll have to live without that. But it is randomly generating results from the roll table. So let's go ahead and pick a couple winners. I think what I'd like to give away is we can give away a choice between a Foundry VTT software license. If any of you in chat don't own Foundry at all yet and you'd like to, that's an option. You can also gift it to a friend if you already do own Foundry but have a friend who you feel like would like to. Other options, you can have a copy of our first party adventure, A House Divided. You've seen some of the scenes from that. It's a product that we're super proud of. And you know, that's a great choice if you're interested in a sort of longer format of game. And We also could give away a copy of our new Phandelver and Below product, official D&D content, if you're interested in that. And so, yeah, there's some good. I think those are 3 really good options of what we could give away. And so, yeah, let's do that. Let's take a spin on the table. I think we could have a couple of winners here. Let's everyone channel your positive vibes and good luck charms, and drum roll please. And our first winner is Somel 1978. Somel 1978. If you are here and you accept a prize, what I need you to do is in chat say I accept, and let us know which you want: the Foundry license, the House Divided adventure, or Phandelver and Below. While we wait to get confirmation from Somel, let's get another winner. Drumroll, please. Our second winner is Talangar. Talangar. Let's see if we have a winner from an acceptance from Talangar. I see, yeah, Somel has accepted. We'll just have to figure out. And Talangar as well. Excellent. We're 2 for 2 so far. Since we've done so well with the first 2, let's try and go for one more, shall we? We'll do a quick drum roll, and we'll try and draw a third winner, which is Quintus_J. Quintus_J. You are a winner of either a Foundry license, the House Divided adventure, or the Phandelver and Below adventure. What you'll need to do to the winners is you'll need to send a DM on Twitch, send a message to me, Foundry VTT, and say in that message which prize you want, the license or the House Divided adventure or the Phandelver and Below adventure. Say in that message which one you want, and we'll get that issued. And your Foundry VTT account, what's your username or email address on the website. Send that in a DM to me, and I'll get those winnings out to you. Did we get an acceptance from Quintus?
Not yet.
Not yet. Time
Let's
is ticking, Quintus. Tick tock, tick tock. Okay, let's roll again. We'll give out another winner. We're going to scratch Quintus off the list, and we roll again, and the winner is Joe the Frogman. I think I've seen Joe the Frogman in chat during this stream. A worthy winner if they're still here.
Is he trying to type accept with frog hands?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're all on our toes, anxiously awaiting whether Joe the Frogman is accepting our prize. I probably shouldn't be showing this map. It's a slight. I haven't showed the major spoilery bits, but we'll switch it away. It's a nice map. It's a fun map. It's an area in the House Divided adventure that if you play through it, you will learn more about.
No, nothing. Frogman.
No.
Nothing from Frogman. All right, our search for a third winner continues. Frogman is off the list. And we roll again. Oragothen. Oragothen. You are a winner if you are here. And yeah, and then after we finish these giveaways, if anyone is interested in asking a few more questions, we can stay around for a little bit longer and answer a couple questions.
We were doing so well.
We were doing so well. We were doing so well. All right. All right. Last chance. Oragathan is out. Third key is cursed. This is the last chance. If we don't get a winner with this last one, it's gonna have to just stop at 2. Everyone channel positive vibes for a winner who is present and willing to accept free stuff. Our winner, hopefully, is the Fallen. The Fall 3-in. The Fallen with the number 3. Let's see if you're here. Let's see if you want some awesome TTRPG, some awesome Vitterpig content.
Where are you, the Fallen?
Oh, God. Soul crushing. We're here working so hard, trying to give out the goods. Oh, so demoralizing. We just can't give away free stuff. Chat's asking for one more roll. Okay, one more roll, but this is the last one. Okay, this we gotta move on here. All right, last one. 117 KK. I'm feeling good about this one. I've seen this username actively in chat. 117 KK. Please save us. Please take our stuff. Please take something.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah!
Okay. Good. Yes, we did it. Good job, everyone. Sweet relief. Send us a DM and let us know what stuff you want. If you already own any of these things, you can get a second copy. You can gift it. That's also an option if that is applicable. Oh yeah, a 1 on the D246. That's actually nice. Number 1.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Cool. All right, awesome. Let's take a couple more questions, and if there's not questions, we could comment on a few other, smaller V12 features. But yeah, if there's any other questions, just hit us with your questions in chat. Oop, that's a double broadcast. Hit us with your questions in chat and let us know what you'd like to know more about. We'll do questions for 10-15 minutes before we wrap up.
Fog of War vision through a window. I'm not taking this one.
So, would you be able to modify the Fog of War vision through a window to reveal areas inside a building as much as the token being outside get closer to the window? I feel like this is describing exactly the way our windows work. So either 20 Digera, I'm about to amaze you that we've already done exactly what you're asking for, or you're asking for something that I don't actually understand what you're asking for. So let me show you how the windows work. So these are set up as proximity walls, which means that they kind of function as windows. And as your character, when your character's far away from the window, you can't really see anything out it. You're too far away from the window to really look out the window effectively. So as you get closer to the window, you can then see outside the window. I'll do it over here in a different room where maybe we haven't explored the Fog of War yet. So if I walk up to that window is, let's see, let's go to this window over here where there's a little bit more room. Yeah, so I'll go up to this window, and as I get closer to the window, I can see out of the window, but not until I am up at the window. Same applies to looking inside from without. You would have to get right up to the window in order to be able to look in. Otherwise, if you're further away from it, you can't see anything. It's a relatively new feature, but I think that was V11, and we're kind of still improving on it a little bit. But question from Victor about V13. I'm not ready to talk about V13 yet. We've got our hands very full finishing V12. There will be ample time for that later. Sorry, Victor. but it's probably going to be scene levels. I'm not ready to talk about V13 yet. I didn't say anything. Mooman asks about following up on the previous question about regions and active effects. Will active effects have specific region interaction, such as an embedded document to the region? I don't know. I think probably not to the region, but it could be that the region behavior, for example, references like an active effect data structure or contains an active effect data structure. So like you could have like a effect application behavior that sort of embeds the active effect data in the behavior data model. Because remember, the behavior is a document, and that behavior has a certain type, and that means it has its custom system data. So you can put whatever data you want in your custom behavior type. So you could put like all the data about like what sort of active effect should trigger. It wouldn't necessarily be that we're embedding active effects in the region, but you could very easily get at something like that. Will there be any more Wizards of the Coast products coming? Yes, we are already working on something. What do you think V12 will influence the most regarding premium adventure paths and the interaction for the GM/player? That's a good question to do like a lightning round around the room. I think I'm not sure the most. I think like probably a hallmark of like the top quality Foundry product, like made for Foundry, would be an adventure product that uses scene regions, because like that's something that just is very Foundry specific. It's like it will add that extra layer of quality and immersion, automation, memorable experiences, cool moments. And I think it's something that like only the top shelf products will probably do that, because if it's a product like, oh, I want my adventure to be on all these different platforms, like here I have these maps, like let's paste the journals in, let's do something that's a little bit more like entry level, you're probably not going to go to the effort as that creator doing like the whole 9 yards of all the scene regions. But I think scene regions could be sort of a real differentiator. What do the rest of you think?
The embed enricher, probably.
I
think that was in prototype 1, but yeah, that one we've already used a bit in some of our own premium content, and I think it's probably going to be very powerful for just building nice journal entries. Yeah.
Eber, Ludovic, is there a feature that you think will be the most powerful for premium content?
Yeah, I think it has to be scene regions and behaviors.
Yeah, definitely.
Not sure what else would make a super huge impact, but like.
Well, what about my proximity sound effects?
Oh,
I forgot about that.
Also. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have like
Prototype
localized
1,
sound effects that happen only audible to tokens that are nearby, or
Yeah.
There's the filters as well, right? The audio filters.
yeah,
That was also
the
prototype
audio
1.
filters. Yeah, that's V12.
It was so long ago that we just forgot that scene. But they're very cool. Yeah.
Ages.
Yeah, maybe the ambience also would be
the new
an asset
lighting,
for premium
the new lighting
developer.
options. Yeah,
and everything combined with scene regions to multiply the.
Yeah, scene regions is definitely like a sort of force multiplier. Like
Yeah.
everything that Foundry can do before, scene regions is like now you have a new way to do it, or a different or powerful way to use that same idea in a different way.
No longer need modules to abuse drawings.
The scope is very, very huge for scene regions.
Yeah, the scene region that like when you step into a room, it plays like a local sound effect of like something that you hear, and only the character that is like the first one in the room hears it, and the rest of the party that's like further back doesn't hear it. Like you can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. All right, let's. I'm going to scroll past a couple questions just to get back closer to current. Puddle images, 5e darkness can flow around walls, so it's somewhat constrained by walls and doors, but not in the same way as normal light sources. Do you have anything for that? Not currently. Maybe someday we'll have a sort of point source that instead of a clockwise sweep that requires a direct ray from the origin does more of like a flood fill type approach where like it tries to, you know, find paths within its radius to reach an area. It could be theoretically done in the future, but that's not something we have anything for right now. Let's see. What's next? Are there plans for better and simpler tools for compendium translation, or is it an important part for the D&D 3.0 system? It's something that we think about. Ludovic's definitely been thinking about this. We recognize that this is a key area to improve. It's tricky. I don't know. I don't think that this is something that's going to meaningfully change in V12, but we are still in the API development phase, and so it is possible that something could adjust here, but I think it's probably something that is big enough that would need more focus in V13 or beyond.
Yeah, V13 or beyond, yeah, definitely.
At the moment, there is a secondary part of the question is like, is this an important part of the D&D 3.0 system? We hope in the future we might be able to explore multi-language support, although at the moment our plans and partnership is specific to English language. That's something that may change, but that's the current state. That doesn't mean localization is not important. We recognize that it is, but it's not something that's necessary for that particular reason. Voodoo Frog asks, not asking for details, but are there any big announcements coming soon? Yeah, definitely. For sure. Once V12 is out, I actually have a room. Oh, Matt's already plotting his regions. Caliguri asks, can we have GM only drawing annotations? Yes. So every drawing, I mean, visually this may not be exactly what you want because it does kind of reduce the opacity of it a little bit, but every drawing can be hidden, in which case it is only visible to Game Master users. So this hidden drawing is not visible to players. It would only be visible to GMs, and that is true whether the drawing is an object representing a tangible thing within the world or a piece of information. In both cases, the drawing can be hidden from players.
Yeah, there's probably a better way for us to highlight hidden stuff. I don't know, for tokens, you don't really know, is it a transparent token, like, or is it hidden? For certain kind of assets, like with ghosts, you can never really tell whether a token is hidden or not. So
yeah. Shorn asks, is there already a preview of the V12 data migration API available somewhere, or is it still being worked on actively? So what we've done so far in V12 is, like, for us internally, server-side migrations. What we hope to still work on as of yet in the API development phase is something that's accessible client-side for game systems to use, possibly for modules also, but certainly at least for systems. And that's not available yet because we've just done the server-side part. Question from Victor, will we also be updating Demon Queen for V12 as well? Yes, we have some Demon Queen updates planned, both for compatibility. Also, actually, we're adding a little bit of new content to it. So not only just compatibility, but it will be getting a new thing or two, which is pretty cool. Any changes to the lighting engine that could allow for walls to change the color of vision like stained glass windows? That's cool, but no. It's a neat idea. It's fun.
Like audio filters, but for eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
It's a little hard. It's not actually so easy to do that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a hard problem. Christian asks, what are some tiny UX UI things you plan to implement? Anyone want to highlight something that's on your hit list between now and V12 stable? Eber, you already mentioned the folders and the icon stacking and stuff.
I'm not sure if it's like a tiny thing, but we've been adding more options to the token config and to the light config, and
getting a little heavy.
Yeah, some things don't really fit in their like tab description title, and it's a bit hard to find. I imagine for like a new user, would probably be overwhelmed by the identity tab, and why is like the coordinates part of the identity and the occlusion radius.
Yep.
Like in the appearance tab, we have.
Okay,
like
we get it. You don't have to point out all the things that suck.
Yeah, but I'm sure we can make some improvements there.
Yeah, we can make some improvements.
Yeah, we have to keep like track of this, adding more features, but the config gets bigger and bigger.
That's the tooltips, and that is what I went to look up. Might have a list, but yeah, tooltips is probably the big one that's on there. And it's only small tweaks. We did some small tweaks already to context menus, but yeah, tooltips just a little bit, just iron out a few of the rough creases on locking tooltip behavior, and I don't know if there's at least locking behavior, but there's potentially some more things we could do with tooltips.
Mm-hmm. Question from guitar guy Nick. Do scene regions enable teleportation on a scene and between scenes? Yes, we will almost certainly be offering that sort of region behavior as a core feature. That's, I think, quite high on our list. Would House Divided be converted to PF2E? Maybe someday. We did that with Demon Queen, and I think we're happy with how that went, but House Divided is a larger and more complex project. We are exploring the idea, though. It's possible. Let's see. Corgan asks, will it be possible to trigger a region with a click or a double click? Now, I don't know if Eber has already been thinking much about this, and you should let you speak for yourself, but one of the things that's been in my mind a little bit is whether certain region behaviors need like a interaction button that can allow users, players mostly, to engage with it. It's something I'd like to do, but I would say it might be on the nice to have side of the line rather than like the absolutely we're going to do that. But I do think there's some use cases like, you know, I want a scene region, like we talked about, like the teleportation, token teleportation. Sometimes, yeah, it's nice if it just happens automatically when you step into the region, but sometimes it shouldn't happen until you like actually, you know, indicate that you want it to happen. Like, I want to climb the ladder, or I want to step into the magic portal, or I want to pull, I want to, you know, hit the button on the elevator that makes me go somewhere else. And for that, we need something more like a button, not just like you step in. And that's something I've been thinking about. It's something that's related to some other work I've been playing with lately regarding like interactable type UX, but I don't know whether that will happen in core for V12 or not. Ebert, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I would think like an interactable node thingy, like button, would be more appropriate than like the entire region is clickable. What happens if there are multiple regions overlapped? If you click on, do all of them open their the thing, and like where's the cursor? At which elevation is the cursor? Like that's also a problem. You wouldn't want to click on a region that's like above your current like token elevation. Like that's a bit tricky. So
yeah, it's possible that interaction elements, like interactable elements or interaction buttons, is a Foundry feature someday, but it might not be the same feature as scene regions. Like the eventual design might be something like, oh, I have a scene region that defines my like arrival zone of like where I come out, like where I land when I make a certain teleportation move. But then you might have like an interaction icon, which is like, okay, I'm interacting with the portal, I'm stepping into the portal, and it might not be symmetric. It might not be that that's like two scene regions. It might be that that's one interaction button and one scene region, and the interaction button causes your token to teleport to a scene region. So like which concept performs which role, I think we'll see. At the moment for scene regions, we're very focused on things that rely on like a geometry of space in the scene to work. Let's see. Thanks, Victor. Thank you, Wholesome Butterfly. That's a very wholesome comment. I appreciate you. Pyrosophy. 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 That's my choice. That's my chosen pronunciation.
It's the dog.
Would a module handling rework be imaginable? Hiding modules in a world to avoid clutter, lock versions for spiff. Hiding modules in a world to avoid clutter, lock versions for a specific world. Maybe. Currently, we support locking modules at the overall installation level. So like you can lock a module to a particular version, but you can't have more than one version of a module currently installed. And so like you wouldn't, the design of Foundry doesn't currently support you having like module version A in use in world 1 and module version B in use in world 2. That would be a very major change. I can imagine that there is some value that could be had from some things like that, but I don't think it would be wrong to say that that's on our prioritization scope. It's not.
I think already in V12, maybe like right at the beginning, yeah, because this was something that was too risky for V11, so it ended up getting put into V12. It was the handling around dependencies in the world. So that was like fully overhauled.
Mm-hmm.
It looks the same, but behind the scenes, the way that dependency dialogue works, it will like fully resolve dependencies and stuff. And that actually still needs to come to the setup screen. So it's like a pet project of mine to just iron out the dependency management for modules, because it's just a tree, and you could solve all of our problems with trees.
Everything's a tree. Yeah.
Everything's just a tree. And I think the question might be related to some of there's like a few I guess, quality of life modules out there that allow you to, for example, record which modules you're using in the world, so you can sort of disable them all and then re-enable them all if you want to. I don't know, like kind of like how safe mode. That safe mode just wipes all your choices and you can't get your choices back again. And then there's obviously like development as well, where you might want to have a bunch of modules active for development only versus game. So there's like stuff like that, which I think maybe the question is aiming at, but
Yeah.
and those sort of things are definitely possible, but where they are on our priority queue is hard to say.
All right, let's take one or two more questions, and then I think we're all probably tired enough to wrap up. But let's see. Guitar Guy Nick, could you set a door as a scene region so you could add DCs for lockpicking to open or traps onto a door? I think that would be better handled as like a system extension of the wall model, because the door is a wall. It's really like that wall that has a locked DC or things like that, or traps attached. Christian asks, will there be better presentation of module recommendations and requirements? Currently, the distinction between the two is not very obvious when you're activating modules. I think it's a little bit related to what Kim was just talking about. I don't remember, Kim, does our improved UI there differentiate obviously between recommended and required?
Yes. The in-world one, yes. It does.
Cool. Nice.
But
see.
when you're installing modules, it's still the same. I haven't
We need to
worked on
port
that.
it. Yeah, we need to port it
Yeah.
over for installation. Yeah. All right, great. Well, I think that seems like we've gotten to the end of the questions, and I really appreciate everyone for sticking with us and enjoying. I hope you've enjoyed this update. I hope you're looking forward to some of these awesome new V12 features. Everything that you've seen here is a prototype, and so for the next couple months, we're going to be really polishing it and trying to bring it to a standard that we feel is amazing for Foundry users to interact with on a daily basis, and that'll require some work, but I think we're on track for getting V12 out stable in a couple of months. I don't have an exact timeline on it, but definitely now that we're done with the prototype phase, I think we're on the kind of the downhill, and we'll be working towards that goal.
Please, if you're a system or module developer, now's the time to give feedback the API.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your participation and engagement. Thank you. And we will see you again next time. Until then, cheers, farewell, happy gaming.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.